Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, June 6th show. My goal is to keep you up to date on the latest news and trends in our local economy. Keep me tuned in and I will keep you informed. If you're listening to my show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast. To talk with any of the guests that I have in studio today, have any questions for them, please call the show at 1-855 400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And my last guest in studio today, Randy Bannecker with Bannecker Public Affairs. And Randy's here to talk with us about housing prices and housing supply. Randy, thank you for coming back into studio. Excited to have a conversation with you today.
Great to be back. Thank you, Tina.
And a little background about Randy. Randy is president of Bannecker Public Affairs. Randy has been engaged in our region's critical issues for more than 20 years. He has extensive experience advocating complex, highly visible, and controversial land use and public policy initiatives. Randy is a leader in the region's business community and has a strong record of community service, which includes co-chair policy committee of the Greater Seattle Chamber of Commerce, president V Academy Board of Trustees, past chair Bellevue Chamber of Commerce, and past president Seattle City Club. Prior to forming Bannecker Public Affairs, Randy's held government affairs positions at Washington Natural Gas, Puget Sound Energy, and the Rocky Company, now Hill and Knowlton. So I'm really excited to talk with you about the housing prices, supply, because it's kind of an area that people are definitely thinking about, whether you're in the real estate market, thinking about real estate or not. It's a big conversation that's happening. So home prices continue to rise in the greater Seattle area and among the nation's highest. What's going on and why are we seeing so much increase in our real estate market, Randy?
Well, you're right, Tina. We are among the nation's leaders in our price appreciation at about, we're in the high single digits, low double digits. The 12-month price increase going back from May was 9% in our market. And what's important to remember is, we aren't a market that took a big drop during the recession. Other markets did. So our price increase is building on this solid platform. The good news is that our market is propelled by a really healthy economy.
Yes.
We've had strong job growth. The bad news is that we have very severely restricted supply.
Yes.
So whereas you'd be looking for, in a balanced market, you'd be looking for about a 4 to 6 month supply of homes for sale. We're at about 1.3 months. And in some neighborhoods, in some hot neighborhoods, Bellevue, Seattle, Kirkland, it's less than a month. And obviously with that supply restriction, that limited inventory, demand's outstripping supply, and prices are going skyward.
And what do you think? Obviously, for sellers and rising in house prices, this is really great news for our sellers.
Well, it is, unless you're a seller that's a move-up buyer and you want to stay in the same market. And so then it remains a challenge for you, both at that economic level, but then also just your options.
Yeah. And isn't that one of the reasons, that we're lack of inventory is just people that are looking at move-up buyers in a normal market with more inventory, they would definitely be moving, especially because the cost to borrow is so inexpensive. But the problem is a lot of them they're nervous about putting their home on the market, afraid that they're not going to be able to find something else, or looking out there, they can't see anything else that makes sense for their family and what they're trying to accomplish. So they're just holding on and not selling.
Absolutely. It's a real challenge. And so, you have for a while, just coming out of the recession, you had people who probably were sitting on the sidelines for that price appreciation to get them back in the black in terms of an equity position. I think for the most part, we're beyond that. You would know better than I.
Agree, yes.
But now we have this exact situation you described where we need to have some product for those move up buyers to go to.
Yeah, got to find some encouragement, and it's just the lack of property out there. Yeah, isn't it funny? And maybe funny, not funny. When we didn't have people weren't buying, but there was no equity in people's homes, so they couldn't sell without giving up equity, or they were giving the properties back to the bank, so obviously not in a position to go buy, and they were renting. And the sellers that did hold onto their properties, they've got all this equity now, but can't find the house to move up. So yeah, interesting times, definitely. So there's a lot of talk about the need for increased subsidies to create affordable housing. Is that a solution?
Well, let me tackle the non-subsidies first, and this is the last bit of data I'm going to throw your way. But if you
I know
think
you're data's guy, go right ahead. I'm sure my listeners appreciate it.
So we were just talking about the move-up buyers. Well, when the move-up buyers can't move up, the first-time buyers have many fewer options because, again,
yes,
that moderately priced home is not available to them. And so if you just look at, we're going to just talking county-wide, the median home price, sold price as of May was $434,000. And that's a blended number of condos and single-family
Okay,
detached.
all right.
Looking at the median county income, they can afford somewhere around $280,000 worth of house. And that leaves a gap of 150 something.
Yep.
That gap is growing. And so the question is, how do we accommodate those folks?
Yes.
In practical terms, what they're doing is they are contacting someone like Wolf, your previous guest, and they're getting in a car and they're driving until they can qualify
yes,
and for a home. That's a trend that we need to keep an eye on because it's not a good trend. It's a trend that that can begin to push on the integrity of the community, the quality of the community.
Sure.
On the subsidized piece, we're seeing a lot in the press about the need for greater subsidies, and I think just relating to what we were talking about, the housing market is a continuum. It's interrelated, and so if you add a new house in any part of that spectrum, from the super affordable to the super expensive, you're going to help. You're going to ease that demand. You're going to improve the supply.
Sure.
Ease the demand, and that will ease price pressure pretty much everywhere up and down the continuum. So greater housing options help everybody, fewer hurt everybody. And where we are now in terms of the folks in need of affordable housing is that when you have the demand outstripping the supply, the market's almost like a game of musical chairs where those with the financial wherewithal get a chair and others do not.
Yes.
And so the way to change the dynamic is to add more chairs. The first thing that you want to do is add some more chairs, get some more supply, or in this case, more housing units into the market.
Yeah.
And then secondly, take a look at strategies to help those who are struggling to find that chair. And there are a lot of strategies available. But again, I think the first thing to tackle is, do we have adequate supply at the market level?
Okay. And what are some of those strategies, Randy?
Well, there are a lot of them. I think first of all, what we need to do is look at where we can add housing in a way that is a benefit to the community. And if you think about the greater Seattle market, we are introducing a lot of, making a lot of transportation investments.
Yeah, we are.
Transit,
yes, and I've had them in studio quite a few times. It's really exciting, actually, what's coming up.
Right, and with those, there are Sound Transit station area development programs.
Yes.
Around those stations is a great opportunity for high density residential development.
Okay.
We've seen some cities really step up and embrace that idea. And then we've seen other cities say, you know what, we don't want to go as big as we could go in terms of that density, in terms of those heights and the intensity of that use. And that's where we're making a mistake that's going to last many years into the future, because limiting those spaces where new development high intensity development is appropriate means that we're further pushing that housing demand around the region in ways,
makes total sense, Randy.
In ways that are tougher to manage in terms of transportation.
Yes.
People's access, getting from where I live to where I work gets tougher.
So where are some of the affordable housing opportunities right now, Randy, that that can people look? Where are you seeing those going up now?
Well, we're seeing some cities develop new neighborhoods that are not the perfect product for everyone, but that injection of particularly a multifamily, creating a multifamily neighborhood. And I'm talking about South Lake Union, downtown Bellevue, downtown Kirkland. Now, it's easy to take those neighborhoods for granted, but take a walk through South Lake Union and imagine what that neighborhood was like only 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Imagine what downtown Bellevue was like when I was a kid. Totally different.
Yes.
And so what's happened is that we've added with commercial office and with multifamily, we've taken a community that had relatively few options for the individual, and now has many.
Yes.
Entertainment, dining, all of those things. Now, the question is it affordable? A lot of the new construction is not going to be affordable, but the people who are living in that new construction now are leaving a place that is probably affordable.
Yeah. And in some situations, I mean, look what's happened with our rent. I literally just had a client was in my office a couple nights ago, $700. And I didn't realize, I thought in Seattle that there was limits as far as you could raise rent. Rent went up $700 a month. He was paying $1,000 for this room. And what happened, you see this happening or hear about it all the time. He was renting a basement room from someone that owned the house, and she sold the house, and a new owner came in and said, $1,000, what? That's crazy. This is worth $1,700, and immediately increased his rent to $1,700. Now, he did have 90 days, so maybe that's where the key is in that maximum limit that you can have. I don't know, that's not my arena, but so a lot of people are getting forced out in rental because they're just going up so quickly, and all these multiple offers that are happening on rentals. Right. It's crazy.
You're right, and what we're seeing, which is it's a troubling trend, is that many of the individual owners of a single family detached house that is available for rent, or a duplex, or a fourplex, or a sixplex, often those are again individual families who have held that as an investment.
Yes.
Being a rental property owner is getting increasingly difficult in some cities like Seattle, because the regulation, the regulatory activity is increasing. And it's forcing those folks to sell. And when they do sell, the price the sales price that commands forces the new buyer to increase rents.
Yeah, makes sense.
And it's really no one's fault. It's what's happening in the marketplace as our region grows. But again, it kind of comes back to, as a region, we need to recognize that we've got to accommodate people. We're happy to take on jobs, but
we've got to make sure they have a place to live and it's affordable.
A job goes home after work, and it goes home to a house or an apartment, and we've got to make sure those places are there for people.
Makes total sense. Now, there's a lot of cranes, new housing projects everywhere that you look, and yet prices continue to rise. So does that suggest that the increased supply will not solve the problem?
I think it tells you that we need a better way to match demand, that we have to adjust zoning in a way that is more real time in terms of meeting demand. For instance, we could be watching job growth, and we could have that as an important input to our zoning. And by zoning, I mean, are we allowing enough units to be built? Again, in those appropriate places.
Of course. So how do you make communities more dense without diminishing the high quality of life that is such a hallmark in our region, Randy?
Well, we talked about that a little bit. I think you can have density and you can have a high quality of life we talked about some examples of that: South Lake Union, downtown Bellevue, downtown Kirkland. Those are really exciting places to be, and they're places that have become much more dense in terms of their residential growth. We need to think more about that, and we've got opportunities. Keep an eye on the historic downtown Redmond, Overlake Village, and Issaquah. Those three neighborhoods have very bold plans to add commercial, office, and residential, and to really transform from what they began as, just a suburban community and small town to something that's going to be a job center and a residential center.
Okay.
Need to promote that and support that.
Yeah. So what about any other specific things that cities can do in what they should be exploring?
Well, think about creating an abundance of land for housing. And that's not how we think about housing right now. And that's not how cities think. Typically, the pressure from community groups is shut the growth down. And we need to think about it in another way. We need to look at what land do we have available that would be appropriate for housing. It can be a very difficult conversation, but it is a conversation that we need to have. We need to increase the zone capacity, as we mentioned. And that can be done through heights, principally. Again, a difficult conversation. Upzone those areas that are adjacent to transit centers.
Okay.
We talked a little bit about that. And there are also a lot of opportunities, I think, as we transform our commercial arterials to think about some low-rise residential around these arterials in a way that activates the street in a positive way with commercial, maybe ground level retail, residential over, but then also buffers that arterial commercial activity from the neighborhood, from the single family detached neighborhood. And in that way, it's a win-win. You're creating some options for people who currently don't have them, and you're protecting that single family neighborhood, which is, again, a very important piece of our community.
Yeah. So Randy, what happens if the region does not take steps to solve this problem?
Well, it puts us at risk in several ways. First, it creates this hourglass type of a community where the people who can live here are wealthy enough to afford the high price, high cost of housing, or their incomes are low enough that they qualify for subsidized housing. That idea sends the middle class packing.
Yeah.
They have to travel far to find a place that they can afford. And people who can't afford to live near their jobs and they're driving until they qualify, that creates sprawl.
Yeah.
And from an environmental perspective, we've had that discussion, and we've said, no, we want to save the environment. We don't want to sprawl. In addition to sprawl being bad for the environment, it's not a great quality of life for the individual, because you're spending less time with family. It's less time you can... And
you're commuting during really stressful time.
Yeah, yeah. And so, where are the Little League coaches if they're stuck on the freeway?
Exactly.
We don't want that. And ultimately, if you really play that out, employers will go to where the people are. The employer will go to where they can find people. And that raises questions about our sustained economic vitality. It's not a trend that you want to pursue, because it brings some fragility into the whole economic discussion.
So if I have somebody that's listening, Randy, right now, and they really want to be a part of the solution, what would you say would be their call to action? Well,
your listeners can be very influential, and I would encourage them to be a part of the discussion. Discussion about housing and growth and community planning is happening in every city in our region, and it's easy to participate in that discussion. It's important that voices emerge that are really thoughtful and look to that win-win where we can accommodate our growth, but also in doing so create a great community. And there are a lot of self-interests that you should be pursuing in that idea. And probably the most important one is making sure you have a place where your kids can live.
Yes.
That is near you, but maybe not in your basement. And also having a place where you can move to once you're an empty nester. So that's going to be a really big issue, I think, over the next many years.
He's got his nice place in Chelan, and what an amazing place to have a second home.
For an invitation, right?
Yeah, I've been waiting for the invitation to head over there.
It's open.
Yeah.
Consider it open.
So, since we've got both of you on mic here, what is your, Wolf, let's start with you. What is your prediction of what you think is going to happen in the next 12 months in our local real estate market and maybe over the next 5 years?
Well, let's start with the 12 months.
Okay.
I think it's going to be more of the same. By that, I mean, we're going to struggle with getting more inventory online, and some of the points that Randy made for the reasons why we're not getting more inventory online. If I was planning to purchase another home right now, and I hear this a lot of times from prospective sellers that would become buyers, they're very, very concerned that, hey, with the market being as good as it is, we'll sell our house in a week, and then we've got 30 days, and how are we going to find something else?
Yes.
So until something opens up, and because no one takes contingent offers these days, I mean, that's history. So that's 12 months. 5 years, my crystal ball is a little cloudy, but I'm going to say we're going to have a this area has a great economy, and it continues to be a draw for people from all around the world because of not just the economy, but the quality of life here.
Yes. And Randy, what about you? What are your thoughts as far as, in your arena and everything that you're doing on your end, what do you see the future for our real estate market, short and long term?
Well, I would agree with Wolf. I would add that for buyers and sellers, this market remains challenging to work in. And I think it really underscores the need to be working with a professional.
Yes, definitely.
Professional realtor like Wolf, someone who understands the whole financing picture, critical.
Yes.
The 5-year plan, I'm bullish. I think people are going to recognize that there is a level of quality and excitement in some of these emerging neighborhoods that we talked about. And I think they're going to want it for their neighborhood.
Yes.
And I think that's going to start to happen in really exciting ways.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. And I think when Sound Transit and all that starts, the exciting things, I know we've got a lot to wait for until coming up in 2030, which is a long time. But there's a lot of more recent things coming up that I think it'll be exciting for our market, our economy, and for housing. So I think there's a lot of good things coming forward. And I think there's a lot of amazing things coming up in the Eastern Washington area as well, because people want to get those second homes. And this is an area to where we can have everything we want with the seasons that we have right across.
Well, that's true. The second home market has done an incredible rebound.
Yes.
So if you're looking for Central Washington, you know who to call.
There you go. You give Wolf a call, definitely.
I like the sunshine there as well. No, but I like it here
amazing.
as well.
The sunshine and the snow. You get the
a little bit of both. Not enough
both.
snow last year. I didn't get to Mission Ridge at all, but when it's good, it's good.
Exactly. Well, thank you both, Randy. I appreciate you coming back in studio. It was always an interesting conversation talking with you, and I appreciate your expertise and input. And Wolf, again, thank you for you coming in, and look forward to having both of you back.
Yeah, our pleasure. Thank you.
And this is your host, mortgage expert Tina Mitchell, signing off for the day. Thank you for being here today. Same time next weekend, same place, right here on 1150 AM at KKNW. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.